Starting the recording. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, all our friends, colleagues, and a very big welcome to our speaker and the chair, and welcome to every one of you who has joined from around the globe. We are very happy to have this session today, and Professor Ajaya is a friend of MMIAS, and he is he has given several talks for us, and we are looking forward to this talk as well. Professor Vidya Venkateshan is also a friend of MMIAS, and she has collaborated with us on several programs, and we are very pleased, we are very honored to have her chairing this session. Before I hand over the session to her, I will very briefly introduce her to you. She has sent us a very modest biodata, so it's not that I am editing anything. Professor Dr. Vidya Venkateshan is Head Department of French and in charge Director, Center for European Studies, University of Mumbai. Her research areas include a comparative study of medieval French and Indian epic traditions and contemporary French and Francophone literature. Some of her publications include French translations of Javed Akhtar's poetic works and an English translation of Raphael Confiance. I am not going to try and pronounce that French title. She is the editor-in-chief of the Francophone University research journal Synergies Inde, published in France since 2006. I hand you over to Professor Vidya.
Thank you so much, Professor Bharucha, for that very kind introduction. Am I audible? I'm sorry for that rasping voice, but I'm down with a viral. But
yes, you are audible. You are
okay. Audible. For nothing in the world would I miss this particular lecture by Professor Ajaya Sahoo, who teaches at the Center for Study of Indian Diaspora, University of Hyderabad, India. His research interests include immigration. Diaspora, identity, and transnationalism. Some of his recent publications include Routledge Handbook of Ancient Transnationalism 2023, Routledge Handbook of Asian Diaspora and Development 22, Routledge Handbook of Indian Diaspora 2017, and Indian Transnationalism Online, New Perspective on Diaspora. He is the editor of the South Asian Diaspora, Routledge, London. A pleasure to be chairing this session, Professor. We look forward to hearing your talk, which is about diaspora and identity, the case of Indian music in the Caribbean. I think all of you have received the synopsis, so rather than waste your time and mine reading about the synopsis, why don't I hand over the proceedings to Professor himself. Professor Sahoo, very eager to hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Vidya Venkateshan, for this introduction. And I would like to thank Professor Bharucha for giving this opportunity from the MMIAS side, and Professor Sridhar and Kirti for organizing this lecture. Okay, and about my topic, as I mentioned, this is about the diaspora and identity. I am giving a perspective about music, like how music has created identity in the Caribbean context, and how it has changed over time, and what is the context about diaspora and transnationalism from the music perspective. And I would like to share this PPT once. Is it visible, this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So my presentations about this lecture would be like, I will give a brief introduction about the diaspora and Indian diaspora very briefly, and the objective and methodologies of this paper. And I will give also a brief background about Indians in the Caribbean, and Indian music in the Caribbean. And then I'll focus main theme of the paper is like the rise and transformation of Indo-Caribbean music by giving some case studies, like 4 case studies from Indo-Caribbean musicians. And then I'll conclude my paper with that. So I'll start with a brief introduction about, because everyone now knows about the diaspora, so I'll not go into detail, but I'll give a brief introduction to those who are not aware about what is diaspora. So the term diaspora, which was earlier restricted to describe the experience of exile and migration away from one's country of origin, has taken a far more secular connotation today. And today it is applied to practically any population which is deterritorialized and transnational, that is, which has originated in a land other than that in which it currently resides, but whose social and economic and political network cross the borders of the nation states and indeed span the globe. And in this sense, Indians in the Caribbean are truly diasporic and transnationals, as they keep the homeland culture alive and simultaneously network with the Indo-Caribbeans across the globe. The Indian diaspora is today considered to be one of the largest diasporas, constituting around more than 30 million. That includes the 18 million NRIs. And it has extended to several nations with a large presence in the countries such as the United States, UK, Canada, Australia, Mauritius, Singapore, Malaysia, South Africa, and the Caribbean. The Indian diaspora is broadly divided into 2 phases based on the migration history, that is the old and the new diaspora. While the old diaspora consists of communities hailing from the different caste and class backgrounds, mostly from the northern parts of India, settling in British, French, and Dutch colonies before India's independence, the new diaspora consists of the movement of highly skilled and technological and sound professionals to the developed countries, that is after India's independence. In the Caribbean context, Suriname, Guyana, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Tobago all have sizable populations with Indian ancestry. They had migrated during the 19th century to work as indentured laborers in the sugar plantations under a 5-year contract. However, today most of them are recognized as people of Indian origins, that is PIOs. Throughout the world, the spread of the Indian diaspora has proven quite significant and has impacted and enhanced every individual socially, strategically, and culturally. It has been shown in the past that Indian music, especially Hindustani Sangeet, and its growth in the Caribbean has served as a touchstone symbolizing the power of culture and tradition among the Indo-Caribbean communities. There are several studies on the Indian diaspora focusing on socio-cultural and political life of Indians in the diaspora, which I'm not going to deal with here. However, I will highlight some of the scholars and their contribution to the music world and cultural preservation while discussing music and diaspora. Indo-Caribbean music is very popular among the global audiences today. Indo-Caribbean music consists of several subgenres, some of which have become instantly famous. As the music industry undergoes rapid changes with time, it is more important than ever for Indians in the Caribbean to nurture their musical traditions. Among the 3rd and 4th generations, Indian musical traditions are preserved as a link to their ancestral land. For the older generation, music became a tool of expression and education for the younger generation as well. In this paper, I'll try to shed light on the evolution and transformation of Indo-Caribbean music in the diaspora and how Indians asserted their ethnic identity through music. And it tries to analyze the impact of globalization on Indo-Caribbean music while discussing different genres such as Baitak Gana, Chutney, and Chutney Soca. This paper is based on both primary and secondary sources of data. While the primary sources of data were collected from music compositions of selected Indo-Caribbean artists through the use of content analysis technique, the secondary sources of data were relied on publications related to Indo-Caribbean music from books, journals, and the internet. In this paper, I'll provide 4 case studies of Indo-Caribbean artists and their work, both traditional and 2 traditional and 2 contemporary artists, and analyze how these transformations takes place. Indians in the Caribbean. Indians occupy a major part of the Caribbean, especially in the regions of Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Suriname. However, they are also visible in smaller numbers in Jamaica, Martinique, Grenada, and other regions of the Caribbean island. In Guyana, Indian population is considered to be the largest among other ethnic groups, whereas in Trinidad, they are on the road to becoming the largest. The Indians first arrived in the Caribbean region right after the abolition of slavery to replace the plantation jobs of the then African slaves. These Indians first entered the Caribbean in 1838 via the sea route under the British colonial authorities and were documented as coolies. Kumar Mahavir pointed out that in the beginning, these Indian immigrants were placed in different colonies by the plantation authorities as per the demand for work. As a result of this, in the contemporary scenario, the presence of several cultural and religious features are evident in these regions. The majority of these Indians came from the northern part of India, where Hindi and other languages such as Bhojpuri are used often for business and communication. Smaller number of Indians also came from the southern parts of India too. Several Indian immigrants who opted to stay back after the abolition of slavery in 1917 started to accommodate themselves because of several reasons, such as anxiety of returning home after decades of servitude. Lomars Rupnarayan talks about how Indian ownership provided East Indians with an opportunity to move from the estate to the village settlements, as this marked the first free internal movement of the East Indians in the Caribbean. However, he added that Indo-Caribbean rural communities in the late 19th century were marked by high levels of unemployment, poverty, illiteracy, and suicide, which symbolizes the lack of opportunities and struggle that Indians as a community suffer in the host land. With the onset of globalization, a great number of Indians in the Caribbean have started migrating to various regions of the United States, UK, and the Netherlands, either for higher education or for better job opportunities. This migration only took place after most of the Caribbean countries achieved independence from their respective colonizers. Over the period, the position of Indians in the Caribbean changed, and they have managed to achieve both power and success all across the Caribbean. The Indians in the Caribbean today are known for their assistance to oppression, which they do in various ways. The Indians have contributed to the unique culture of Caribbean. They have also contributed to the Caribbean politics by giving great leaders, including the President and Prime Ministers, such as Chedi Jagan, Basdev Pandey, Kamala Prasad Vishesar. I argue here that the involvement of Indians in the political scenario of the Caribbean has not only given visibility of the Indian diaspora community, but also encouraged the Indian culture and given it a boost by giving it to the international platform. The Indo-Caribbean community is now regarded as one of the Caribbean's most lively ethnic community. They progressively managed to hold their religious and cultural ties with the growing activities of music and dance. The present population of PIOs in the Caribbean is around 2.5 million, out of which many have ethnically blended with the immigrants from other parts of the world, and thereby showcasing an absolute intercultural and cohesive approach towards culture and society building. It is true that with time and change in technology, the younger generations have adapted to modern and Western lifestyles, at the same time making sure their ties with their ancestral land stay strongly connected by observing Hindu festivals like Phagwa, Diwali, and Sivaratri. We can see the usage of Hindu traditions and rituals during Hindu weddings, where women sing and perform folk songs to celebrate the ceremony. As rightly pointed out by our former External Affairs Minister, late Sushma Swaraj, I quote, "Indians in the Caribbean occupy a position of considerable power and influence. They have produced some of the best artists, writers, spiritual leaders, political thinkers, doctors, lawyers, scientists, and sportsmen. Indian festivities including Diwali, Holi, Mahasivaratri, and Ram Navami are celebrated with traditional fervor and gaiety. Indian films and music are also popular as in India." Unquote. Indian music, if you read some of the works from scholars like Goita Bahadur, like the author of the book Kuli Women, she writes about her love for chutney, the vibrant form of Indo-Caribbean dance music that developed in the West Indies. I quote her like, "The music is hybrid. It is more than a bit wild. It did, after all, grow at least partly from the jesting, suggestive songs that Indian indentured women sang for each other among themselves on the night before a wedding and its consummation." In India, music holds a vital position and is part of the socio-religious life too. India's music is immense and has variety in it. It combines various genres, assortments, and structures, which includes classical music, folk music, and Bollywood music. Music has the strength to bring people together, and the Indian diaspora has utilized its strength to reunite Indians in their respective hostland. However, today Indian diaspora is making music to bring different races and ethnicity together, removing the barrier of language, race, ethnicity, and religion. For instance, Indian Indo-Caribbean music has facilitated generations of Indians as a bridge that connects to the lost history of the first indenture migration. Tina Ramnarayan, while talking about the survival of Indian traditional elements, mentions the ability of music to retain identity. While discussing Indian music in the diaspora, she talks about the role of Indian music in building and developing Indo-Caribbean identity, where folk music of traditional ceremonies such as Matikor, that is pre-wedding ceremonies, and Sohor, that is the childbirth ceremonies, became legitimate genres that facilitated the Indo-Caribbean community to stay together and assert their identity on public platforms. According to Patricia Mohammed, apart from bridging a direct connection with the homeland, music also served as a tool for resistance for both the community and the gender. For example, women who used music to educate and instruct their younger generation during traditional celebrations like Matikor later became mouthpiece for the same gender to express and reclaim their identity. Indo-Caribbean music is frequently heard at wedding festivities. Wedding rituals like Sangeet, Mehendi, and Vidai are common performances to observe during Hindu marriages in the Caribbean. What is more common in these wedding rituals is the presence of folk songs, which are performed by both males and females. It is not only popular among the PIOs in the Caribbean, but also among the Indo-Caribbeans settled in Europe and North America. The significance of these songs is more than just fun and joy. Additionally, if you look at like Indo-Caribbean music also bridges the gender division by bringing both genders together as a community. Though Indo-Caribbeans often use music to convey their Indianness, today they use music to showcase their unique identity as Indo-Caribbeans. For instance, music shows and dance performances are an essential part of any celebration among the Indo-Caribbean community. Public performances like Rajdhar, Londeki Nach, Chutney, and Chutney Soka are a few styles that one can observe on various occasions and celebrations in the Indo-Caribbean community. It is interesting to note that this particular music practice of various celebrations and festivals is quite identical to North Indian performances and practices. Initially, music served as a healing element to overcome isolation, not only from the homeland, but also from the other communities residing on the island, such as ex-African slaves. Music and the instruments of their homeland acted like a bond for these migrants to survive in the adverse conditions and post long working hours. Indian music today has been gaining worldwide popularity with artists of various backgrounds incorporating Indian styles of sound to complement their work. The fluidity of music together with globalization brings out a variety of music practices all across the globe. Indian music in particular has been reshaping itself time and again with the help of global migration. Artists of Indian origin are contributing to this new trend of hybrid music making, popularizing their ancestral history, claiming the identity and glorifying culture. The blooming of Indian music in the Caribbean started with the first Indian indenture migration to the Caribbean during the colonial period. Various musical traditions and practices of Indo-Caribbean people often reflect the Bhojpuri cultural heritage. Songs and performances at festivals like Holi are seasonal but are considered as important as other music practices and performances. During the 1970s, in Trinidad, one of the most popular forms of music came into existence called chutney, which was quite similar to the Baitak Gana, which was originated in Suriname. With time, music also changed its form. For example, the usage of musical instruments, lyrics, and language changed over time, making it more hybrid. Chutney is one such form where an evident shift is visible in terms of lyrics, tempo, rhythm, and emotions. In the 1980s, while chutney music was experiencing heights of popularity and audiences were enjoying the songs of love and alcohol, an entirely new genre of music emerged in Trinidad called chutney soca. What makes chutney and chutney soca apart is the evident and heavy African influence of soca beats and the absolute usage of creolized lyrics. Chutney soca is more than a music genre. It represents a union of cultures in the diaspora. This evolution of chutney and chutney mix inspired a variety of local artists from Trinidad, Guyana, and Jamaica towards the Indo-Caribbean music industry and gave rise and fame to the Indo-Caribbean music. I'll give here like some of the case studies, like 4 case studies of Indo-Caribbean musicians. Then I'll show that how it has changed over time and created its identity, Indian identity. There are several number of studies and descriptions revolving around Indo-Caribbean music traditions and how it became a tool in community building in the host land. That includes Peter Manuel's special overview of Caribbean music, Helen Mayer's discussion about folk traditions, Tina Ramnaran's case study about the presence of chutney in dual migratory pattern, Tejaswini Niranjana's take on gender representation in Indo-Caribbean music. But this paper, with the help of selected artists and their works, discusses the transitional pattern in Indo-Caribbean music that caused by factors such as music portability, the introduction of media, generational change, and present consumer demand. The first case is about Draupadi. The history of Indo-Caribbean music is dominated by a few distinguished names, and among them Draupadi and Ramdev Chaito are known to be the torchbearers of Indo-Caribbean music industry. Draupadi comes from Indo-Surinamese ancestry and is a very popular name in Waitak, Ghana. Her songs depicted rural Indians and their musical customs while expressing religious feelings. She is known for pulling East Indian music out of the shadows in 1968 with the release of her traditional album titled Let's Sing and Dance, which includes a collection of wedding songs that had a religious touch to it. Since folk tradition and religious songs were the jam of the East Indian population during the 60s and 70s, it instantly went on to become a hit. It is Draupadi who is responsible for legitimizing the popular community tradition of singing into a music genre, and also for exposing Waitak, Ghana to the music market in the form of recorded music album. While studying Draupadi's work more closely, it is observed that songs like Gauri Puja and Moregari Suno Maharaj, these are all very popular even in the 21st century. I'll give you some instances about this song about Moregari Suno Maharaj, which is from the YouTube. I have this is a 4 minutes video song, which I would like to share it.
No, it's not audible.
Ajaya, it's not audible.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing this video clip. So this is a 3 minutes video clip.
Yeah. But maybe if you increase the volume on the video, if that is possible, maybe that will help.
Increasing?
Yeah, please.
Because we can't hear anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you need to share the sound, which you haven't done as yet.
Yeah, if somebody could help him.
Is it?
Need to share computer sound.
Oh.
Your computer sound, if you can make that
Otherwise, keep
louder.
Okay.
I think one of my students can help.
Okay now?
Yeah. It works.
Okay. So what is more you can find in this, like Draupadi songs usually transport the listener to the colorful Indian village weddings of old times. The captivating nature of her folk songs and her connection with her listeners made Draupadi's name a touchstone in the history of Baitak Gana in Suriname, and made Draupadi one of the most enduring representatives of Indo-Caribbean music industry. Draupadi's experiment with Indian folk songs gave a new direction to the local music practices. Traditionally, weddings in northern India are not one-day affairs. Hence, there are several pre-wedding and post-wedding functions. And music is one of the primary elements of all these traditional rituals and is considered to be auspicious. These songs have different themes, moods, and motives. Draupadi primarily drew inspiration from the same North Indian wedding musical pieces and songs that women used to sing to recall the spirits of God and sometimes ancestors too. There is one extract from Draupadi's song called Gauri Puja, which can be identified as a Devi Devta song where the singer recalls the Hindu gods and goddesses to take their blessings for happiness and prosperity in life. The nature of these songs appear very religious and sacred. However, the tune to which this song was created has a dancing vibe. Similarly, it is also observed in other songs on weddings such as Seher Ke Geet, Bane Ke Geet. These songs are traditionally sung by women who tease the groom and his family with the usage of colloquial slang. These songs could be very insulting and disrespectful, sometimes depending upon the language, although the main purpose is to bless the groom for his married life. Draupadi's song More Gari Suno Maharaj is one such Sehra song. The arrangements of these songs resemble contemporary bhajan performances which the Hindu community occasionally practices during Jagran, Mata Ki Chauki and Kirtan, where a vocalist would sit on the ground with an harmonium accompanied by a choir mostly playing instruments like manjira and dholak and other musical instruments. Although Draupadi's songs may resemble typical Indian musical forms, generational changes and relocation have caused them to evolve into a distinctive type of Indo-Surinamese music. The second case about the Sundar Popo. Sundar Popo is known to be a pathbreaker in the Indo-Caribbean music industry. A Trinidadian by nationality, he introduced a different kind of musical taste to the East Indian population. In 1969, Popo entered the music industry in collaboration with Münster Records, and that marked the year as the biggest turning point in the history of East Indian music in the Caribbean. Before he released his first single hit called Nana Nani in 1969, he used to perform bhajans at various public gatherings such as temples and weddings from a very early age. His song Nana Nani had a comical touch to it where creolized Trinidadians and Hindi were mixed with instruments like dholak and dhantal accompanied by guitar and synthesizer. The popularity of Popo's song made him an instant hit and also faced him the title called King of Chutney. Sundar Popo started his career with his record-breaking song where he recognizes the linguistic shift in his lyrics. At the same time, his songs address the complete assimilation of Indian migrants by representing the lifestyles of liberated East Indians where even the grandmothers consume alcohol. Sundar's few songs, for example, evoke the migration of Indians to a foreign land and the changes that migration brought about. Over and again, Sundar Popo lyrically depicts how people of Indian origin are embracing the ongoing changes in their culture and community. Popo hints at heavy Western influences over clothing that he describes as obscene in his song. He calls East Indian as alcoholics who enjoy disco night gatherings and cinema culture. The third case about Hemlata Dindayal. Hemlata Dindayal's stage name is called Hurricane Hemlata, is a renowned artist from Trinidad. She comes from a family of musicians and entertainers who has taken up the charge to revive the most original Indo-Caribbean music genre, chutney. While satisfying the demand of present chutney lovers, she is making a significant contribution to the music industry. Hemlata, along with her sister, Rasika Dindayal, who is also known as Rani, the Queen of Chutney, is working to preserve the age-old tradition chutney. The chutney industry witnessed a huge fall after Chutney Shoka took over chutney compositions and several artists from the Caribbean. Hemlata and Rasika are both traditional chutney artists. Their goal is to revive the dying art form. Hemlata's songs like Badal, which translated into cloud, is a romantic song that draws inspiration from local folk songs of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar in India. Even though the musicians such as Dindayal sisters are following the path shown by early chutney artists, their music compositions are very different from pioneering artists such as Sundar Prabhu. We observe modern dancing, colorful clothes, and semi-naked provocative dancing accompanying traditional chutney performances, which sometimes resembles chutney shoka. The fourth is the Raymond Ramnarayan, who is famous for his chutney and chutney shoka. Raymond Ramnarayan is presently considered the biggest star in the chutney shoka industry for his unstoppable and unique style of music making. Ramnarayan comes from Indo-Trinidadian roots and has performed around the globe. He remains an important face during the various chutney shoka monarch, that is the famous singing reality show of Trinidad and Tobago, and chutney glow shows. His song like the Naketang. Naketang is one of the most famous compositions by Raymond Ramnarayan with Dile Nadan, where he combined various Bollywood songs to make one remix composition and served it to the audiences and listeners with a chutney shoka twist. I'll give you the brief instance about this song like Naketang. Then we'll discuss about
all you come, it's a lockdown session. Bring your bottle, bring the spoon. Bring your bottle, bring the spoon. Bring your bottle, bring the spoon. Knock a table and bust a tune. We in a Ghana session. The bottle and spoon in the hand. Playing with favorite jam. Knock a ting, knock a ting. Hey, Mohammed Rafi. They tell me sing a tune from here. I only from 1960 and this is the tune I sing. दीवाना हुआ बादल सावन की गता छाई ये देख के दिल झूमा ले प्यार में अंगराई दीवाना हुआ बादल. Hear my story. We lining in the yard, head nice and getting on bad. You don't know we come from Trinidad. Knock a ting, knock a ting. Hey, ball out showstopper. Come sing we are next Ghana. We are the bottle and the trace and live with better live together. भर के लिए कोई हमें प्यार कर ले झूठा ही सही. पल भर के लिए कोई हमें प्यार कर ले झूठा ही सही. 2 दिन के लिए कोई इकरार कर ले. 2 दिन के लिए कोई इकरार कर ले झूठा ही सही. पल भर के लिए कोई हमें प्यार कर ले झूठा ही सही. Break it down. You see me and my friends them. We in we own bubble and we ain't causing no trouble. Knock the thing now. Knock a ting, knock a ting. Everybody come let we knock a ting. Knock a ting, knock a ting. Beat the table and knock a ting. The party get done. Don't mind we in a lockdown. We head done and we having fun. Knock a ting, knock a ting. Hey, wifey by the gate. Yeah, so boy you stand to skate. Pick up the drinks and the food and the place. Licks if you like too late.
फूल तुम्हें बेचा है खत में फूल नहीं मेरा दिल है. फूल तुम्हें भेजा है खत में फूल नहीं मेरा दिल है. प्रीतम मेरे मुझको लिखना क्या ये तुम्हारे काबिल है. फूल तुम्हें भेजा है खत में.
Raymond, Billy Nadan. Ha.
Okay, this narrating not only symbolizes modernity and progressive imagery through visuals and lyrics, but also represents the ongoing link of the Indian diaspora with India in various ways. Narrating, which means make a noise, is very popular among the younger generation of Indo-Trinidadians, as it serves their music taste and binds them with the music history of the Bollywood. Chutney Soka has gained a great deal of attention from artists and audiences alike. The modern composition of Chutney Soka are always characterized by hybridity as opposed to the pure chutney songs. Because modern artists have always sought to compose upbeat, progressive and contemporary songs, such as like Hemlata Dindayal and Raymond Ramnarayan are two postmodern Indian origin artists from Trinidad. In the aftermath of the pandemic, the artists released several new chutney and chutney soka compositions, which were well received by their audiences, sending the message of unity in music. I'll conclude that Indians in the Caribbean occupy large space in between other races. A century and a half later, after the first migration of indentured coolies, now they are identified as Indo-Caribbeans. They hold important roles and responsibilities in different sectors of the social order. Their links to India have been reattached time and again through various mediums, mostly through cultural practices such as Indo-Caribbean music that display the uniqueness of Indo-Caribbean identity. For Indo-Caribbeans, assimilation, acculturation, and hybridization have been the driving forces behind their music making for several generations. As discussed in this presentation through the examples of 4 artists and their music journey, it is argued that to survive and prosper, both chutney and chutney soka has undergone a lot of changes, and as they have been influenced by many factors, both external and internal. For Indo-Caribbeans in the diaspora living in other parts of the world, especially in Europe and North America, their music represents Indo-Caribbean values and Indo-Caribbean identity. Though the modern engineering of music is quite sophisticated, such as chutney soka and carnival music style, the music is still considered somewhat desi, which gives the younger generations a sense of belonging. Thank you.